Hi and welcome to another episode of NLP Upskill Your Life, the second episode of this year. It's great to be back again. Today it's just myself and Finton. Rich has taken a bit of time off the podcast for a while because he's kind of busy with other stuff. But he'll be always welcomed back on. Like it's been great to have Rich on with all his input that's been on the podcast over the last number of months since June of last year. So I'm sure you'll share that with me, Finton.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, Rich is a big loss to the team. Obviously, he's been a great part of the dynamic we've had over the last 8 months.
Yeah,
And yeah, absolutely. Of course, we'll still be doing some work with Rich in other fields and stuff like that, and
yeah,
Thursday night meetup and that sort of thing. So yeah, and of course, he's always welcome to come and join us for any more podcasts,
yeah.
even as a guest in the future.
Definitely,
So
definitely.
thanks very much, Rich.
Yeah, thanks a million, Rich, for everything. It's been a pleasure, to be able to learn from each other. Really, the three of us since it started, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And we wish him the very, very best of luck in everything he does.
yeah, big time, big time. So today's podcast, we're going to talk about well-formed outcomes because last one we were all around goal setting for the new year. So I think we'll start off with well-formed outcomes. So if you want to maybe explain, Fintan, a little bit about them.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, a well-formed outcome is a document that we use as NLP practitioners. Everybody who takes on a new client, what we do is we go through a series of questions with them. And the idea of this is obviously to give us, the practitioner, an idea of what it is exactly the client wants, but also to give the client an idea of what exactly it is that they want. Because sometimes they come in with maybe something a little bit more ambiguous. So being able to refine it down a bit is good for them. And also, sometimes they don't consider all the different angles of what gaining that particular outcome might entail. So this really goes into it, delves in detail into it. So the idea of this is that, as Mark said there earlier, that we spoke about goal setting, and it doesn't have to be New Year's Day to be a goal setting, and knowing fully what it is you want and knowing exactly having a better idea then of whether or not you can attain that goal really helps you to maintain the momentum in going for that goal. So yeah, so that's what we normally go through. And that's the idea of the well-formed outcome. Basically, what we're looking at is what exactly is the outcome and how well-formed is the is that outcome for the client.
Yeah, because like basically what you say there. So it's basically asking what you want rather than a lot of people say what they don't want. When they come to you like as a client or as somebody you're trying to help, even they anybody say like, oh, I don't want to be sad. I don't want to. There's an infinity of stuff you don't want. So it's basically getting down to what they actually want.
That's exactly it, Mark. Absolutely.
Mm. Yeah, because so like I'll run through a few of them here of what we say to somebody that we're trying to help. So the first thing we say is, what do you want? When do you want it? Like, it's to set a time frame of when you want the actual thing to happen. Like to put an exact time frame. If just say you want this in, like, say 3 months or a year, to be specific of the time frame you want this thing to happen in. Yeah, so if that makes sense. And like, where do
That's
you
it.
want it? Like, and that's another question. Like, where do you want it? Like, do you want it in your work life? Do you want it in your personal life? Do you want it it's basically getting you to think of where you really want it, where you want this thing you're looking for. And then the next thing, with whom do you want it? Like, for instance, if you're in a company and you want your group to do something and to excel at something, it's asking you who you want to with, or it could be a business partner or partner, or it could be a various things. So it's about asking you and getting you to think internally of who you want it with, and then how will you look when you have it? So that's a really good one. Like, seeing, when you can put yourself like disassociate from it, and you're saying like how will you how would you look, would you when you're confident, are you standing up straight, how you're breathing, it's putting yourself in like how you will actually look when you achieve that goal, or the outcome that you want, that well-formed outcome. And then the next one we talk about is how would you sound and others sound when you have it, like how confident will you sound, like will you be sound, for instance, if you're, when you're confident, you'll sound you sound really, when you sound confident, because we all sound confident at some stage. So you're being congruent in what you're saying. Congruence and confidence go together. So it's seeing how you're going to sound, like, so that's a really good one as well. And really getting you to think about these things, they can be really, really good. And the next one is, how would you feel when you have it? How would you feel inside it? Would you feel happy? Like, obviously you'll feel grateful. So it's asking you how you will feel. Like, it's a question. You can even ask these things for yourself, and it can really help. So what do you think of that, Finton? That makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, what you're trying to do is get the person to visualize. But you're not
Mm,
just visualize using your inside pictures, inner pictures, but you're
mm,
using all of VACOG,
yeah.
as you remember from previous podcasts, that's visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. So
Yeah.
basically, well, the main three are obviously visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, with olfactory and gustatory, which is, of course, smell and taste, as a I suppose, submodality of kinesthetic, you
Hmm.
know. So what you're doing is, yeah, absolutely visualize it, hear the sounds, and feel how you would feel, and that gives you a more three-dimensional picture, if you
Yeah.
like, or idea of what it is, how things will actually be if and when you uh, get that outcome. The other things that we ask, for example, we ask about, how we tap into the person's resources. So we ask them about their internal resources. Do they have the internal resources to achieve it? Now, what that might mean is, do they already know how to do it? But it might also mean that, well, even if they don't know exactly how to do it, do they know where to go to get that information? All
Mm,
right. Again, so it's a bit like, okay, do you have the internal resources to, if I ask you a question, anything, and you go, well, I don't know, but I can Google it,
hmm.
for
Yeah.
example. So you're using your internal resources, i.e., your ability to Google, right? So your ability to learn, your ability to research information. So it's not just about what you already know,
Hmm.
it's about what information or what exactly you can get access to.
Yeah.
Another question we ask then is about the external resources, right? So, for example, if you want to be a taxi driver, you might say, well, do you have a car, you know, or do you have access to a car, you know? And if you neither have a car nor have any access to a car, uh, in any way, shape, or form, nor are likely to be able to get access to a car, then perhaps taxi driving mightn't be the right thing for you. Or maybe get a rickshaw or something,
Yeah.
which are very popular around Dublin these days, the
Hmm.
bicycle rickshaws. Um, but the thing about it is, it's all about asking the questions, asking the right questions to make the person think, well, how feasible is this outcome? And am I able to achieve it? And the thing about it as well is that generally speaking, they are going to have the internal resources. And the chances are that they will have access to the external resources, because it's unlikely that they become looking for this if they didn't. And as a result of that, then it's about getting them to think.
Mm.
Another question we put to people is, well, if you gain this outcome, how will it impact your family, your friends, your workplace, and your business and your relationships?
Mm-hmm.
you know.
That's a big one, yeah.
So like it's important to have a look at those how those things are impacted. Like for example, you might want to get a promotion at work, right? Or expand your business, but it might entail working 24/7. Now, that might be fine if you have that time and you don't have any other commitments. But if you have a young family or whatever the case might be, and you want to spend time with them, like it has happened that people have spent their entire working lives working hard to provide for a family and never actually getting to spend time with them,
Mm.
uh, so that they're a virtual stranger to their kids or whatever the case might be. So attaining the goal is not necessarily, beneficial, that there may be some sort of compromise or some sort of um, way where they can increase the size of the business or earn more money without it impacting overly on their personal life, on their family, their friends, and that. And of course, then the question of does having this outcome fit for every area of your life? So that's an important question to ask as well, because like that, it might work well in work or it might work well at home, but then does it impact adversely on another area of your life? Maybe your health, maybe So all of these things have to be taken into consideration. Um, what do you think of that, Mark?
Yeah, that's very well explained there, Finton. Thanks a lot for that. Because no, like it really gets people to really think of where they're going, especially that when you said about like relationships and how it's going to affect your home life. That's a big thing because you really, as you said, you really have to kind of think of all the stuff it's going to impact. Whether you're going to have enough time to spend with your family to reap the rewards of the thing you're doing. So it's a really great one. And then I love the one, the external resources as well, because I've done that before on somebody and he never thought of that before, of external stuff and internal stuff. So it was really great to, you know, for what he got out of it.
Absolutely, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, yeah. So no, it's really, really great stuff. And yeah, so yeah, there was another one there. How you know when you have achieved your outcome. So like again, like Finton was saying, like, these questions really get you to think of where you're going with this well-formed outcome you're creating. So basically how you know when you have achieved your outcome. So like, if you have, let's say, put an example of you're doing NLP and you're being a helper, like of call it a helper of any description of helping people. Like you'll know by the amount of clients you've had. Let's say it could be that, or if even if you want to get a better job, like you'll know if you've got the interview, like you went for the interview, prepared really well for the interview, and the outcome is you've got that job. So that's a really, I know that's very very simple explanation, but it's different for everybody that's doing these things. So it's so you'll know by that how you've achieved it. And the next one is happen if you do get this outcome. So again, like a lot of these questions sound similar, but they're different when you're asked them, because like when I first did it before, like it was like you really have to think about that question because it sounds so familiar with the other two questions that came before it. So it's basically what will happen if you do get this outcome. Like look at all the benefits that that you've done because you've really got this outcome of whatever it is you want to go for. So that's one to really think about. And then it's funny that the next one, like I'm saying, what won't happen if you do get this if you do get this outcome. So again, that could mean if what won't happen if you do get this outcome.
Yeah, it is quite confusing, and the idea of it is, I suppose, to a certain extent, to confuse people, to make them think in a different sort of way. And quite often you'll see people and they'll be looking, well, let's see, is the answer here or is it there? What exactly does that question mean, And
Mm.
the idea is, of course, that the more you ask the question, the more they think about it, the better the answer that they'll come. So, for example, where you say, what will happen if you do get this outcome? So, say, for example, you go for a promotion, and you might say, okay, well, if I do get this outcome, I'll get my promotion, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you don't get this outcome, so what won't happen if you do get this outcome, right?
Hmm.
So, for example, what won't happen is, well, I won't get my promotion, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and that sort of thing. So it kind of, it might also say, well, what won't happen if I don't get my promotion? I won't get a pay rise, for example,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And then I won't have resources that I need, or I
Mm.
want, say, for example, to go on holidays, better holidays, more holidays, or whatever it might be. Or it might be, I want to be able to put my kids through college or school, and I won't be able to send them to the school they want to go to
Mm.
because it's too far away, because I didn't get this promotion, because I won't have that pay rise because I get this promotion. Does that make a bit more sense?
No, it does because yeah, like as you said, there's an individual answer to all of these, so it's about really thinking about how it suits your scenario. Like even the last one, for instance, how do you get to have to sorry, how do you get to have or keep by maintaining the problem, anything and everything. Like it's again, it's a question that could relate to people in so much different ways.
Yeah. What do you get to keep or have? Yeah, by maintaining the problem. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, yeah. For example, I think we were talking about this earlier, and we are saying, say, for example, somebody wants to be better at their job, right? And obviously, there's advantages to being better at their job, but maybe they don't want to be better at their job because, or by not being better at their job, it means then that their people won't be hassling them, asking them to do work, or asking them awkward questions, or whatever the case might be, about the work that they do. So there that might be something, a secondary benefit, as they call it, that they may not have been aware of.
Yeah,
So
great. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then the last one there, Finton, how do you know it's worth gaining this outcome?
Well, I suppose what you're asking people to do is to look at their own values, you know.
Hmm.
And I suppose so there's two aspects to that really. Yes, how do you know it's worth gaining this outcome? I suppose you've asked a lot of questions of yourself, i.e. the client, right? Uh, as you went through looking through this well-formed outcome. And you think to yourself, well, on the balance of things, on the one hand, there are these positive benefits, and on the other hand, then there are these negative, these disadvantages that will accrue. So, for example, somebody might want to work less and spend more time with their kids, which is great. On the other hand, then there may be the situation where they'll have less money coming in. Will they be able to manage? Maybe they'll be able to offset childcare because there'll be less childcare against the wages that they're no longer getting. So this is really a balancing area. And the last question then, the second part of that is there any part of your life that gaining this outcome does not work for you? Okay. And then you have to think of things like people, places, times, right? And then they really need to put a lot of thought into this. So it's good for you as a practitioner to push the person, or for the practitioner to push the client on this area, because it's a lot of people have a tendency to gloss over. They
Hmm.
think, oh, this would be a great idea. So they'll say to themselves, well, they'll think of all the good bits. And then when it comes to the awkward bits, they'll kind of go, oh, do you know what? I'll think about something else. Oh, what's for dinner today? And they stop thinking about it. So that's why this entire process is so important, to get the person to spend this time focused on exactly what it is that they want, and exactly the what's involved in obtaining this outcome, in gaining this outcome. So it is important for them. For example, they might say, like we said earlier, they might want to go for promotion, but that might involve extra work. It might involve weekend work. So suddenly what they do at the weekend no longer applies, because now they're working on Saturdays, or now they can't play sport if it was sport they were playing on a Saturday, or they can't bring the kids to a match, or they can't do whatever it might happen to be, you know. So all of these things are important to consider, you know. So that's why it's so important to go through the well-formed outcome, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Fintan. Yeah, that so it's a really good and useful way to start any helping, or if you're a helper in any way, it's a good way to start a session to help out to get them thinking of a well-formed outcome. So that's great. So thinking of that, can you think of a time when you did a well-formed outcome on somebody, or you got done on yourself? Can you think of a scenario and how did it go for you?
Yeah, well, actually, I've had a well-formed outcome done on myself a number of times for various different reasons, and I have to say it was great for helping me think through what exactly it was that I was looking for. And in some cases, in many cases, I've done well-formed outcomes on other people. And quite often, when you do a well-formed outcome on a person, you you realize that there's actually a certain realizations done in the process of asking those questions, that actually is a huge help to the person. And in some cases, I've offered to do a well-formed outcome with people purely to do a well-formed outcome with someone, and without any follow-up sessions, because there wasn't necessarily a follow-up session required. For example, they have an idea of what they want to do, but they're not sure exactly what way to go with it and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I did a well-formed outcome with one person who was looking to see what the best way to take their career was, you know, and to weigh up the pros and cons. And actually, I have to say, we both learned a lot from that. And I'm happy to say the person had made their decision at the end of the well-formed outcome, was delighted with the time they took out to actually go through everything thoroughly, and has taken the appropriate action for themselves. And I have to say, I'm really, really happy for them, because it was something they'd been thinking about for years. And it was just something that they eventually, once they'd done the well-formed outcome, they knew exactly what it was they wanted to do. And they were able to, they had the ammunition to do that, you know. And another situation where I was working with someone with the well-formed outcome, I actually there was a great realization made, you know, and all it was really was a reframing of how the person was looking at something, you know. And this particular person was running their own business. They were starting their own business, and they had an issue with making follow-up calls, you know. So, for example, they would do the work, get all the information out there, and then it would just be a matter of making a call and ringing a person, you know, and or a number of people, and asking them, did they want their services, you know. And the thing was that in the course of the well-formed outcome, they realized that actually, in not following up and in not making that phone call, that the person that they hadn't rung was being deprived of the absolutely amazing service that this person had to offer.
Wow.
And in so realizing that there was somebody out there who really needed this service and would really, really benefit from this service, wasn't getting this service purely for that reason, then it completely changed their attitude and their mindset when lifting that phone or deciding whether or not to lift that phone to make those follow-up calls. So I was delighted for that person. I know that person's flying it now, you know. So yeah, so there's a couple of examples now of where I used well-formed outcome with someone, and there was great benefit gained in both those cases.
Great stuff, yeah.
Great clarity, you know.
Yeah, and you get such a satisfaction from helping people, and they're knowing that it's really works. So that's why it's like, for example, like when I was doing Orlando's course, NLP Fusion,
Yeah.
was great. I had the pleasure of you doing a well-formed outcome when we self Clinton, and at the time I'd written a book, The Adventures of Larry Lamppost and Friends, and I had a draft of it there. I had like the guts of it there. But by talking to you and you going through all the questions, I went and got got it properly done and edited, copy edited by a guy I had on the other podcast that I do but for authors, and it was great because I was able to think of what way I was going with the book, and hence it's published now, and it's in a lot of libraries and in a few bookstores. So that really helped me. So it just shows you, by doing this stuff, it can really you can really excel of what you want to do. And another example of when I was helping a friend of mine, he on a welfare outcome, he never heard of this stuff before. And I said, "Do you mind but he was having a hard time where he had a bit of a breakup, and he didn't know whether to contact the girl back or after a while. But I went through all the questions with him, and he was feeling kind of down because he'd broken up and he didn't know where he was going with things. And by asking him about the external resources part, it just springs to mind by talking about that earlier on. He was
Yeah.
thinking of the resources, or the internal resources rather, of coping mechanism and being able to make friends and not kind of devoid for a while, give himself a break from her so he could get things back together in his life. And that really
Right.
helped him, for
Yeah.
doing this is only the second time I ever done it at that stage, the well-formed outcome, and it was a real success. You could see the change in him as you were discussing it. So it was really powerful.
Yeah. It is really, really powerful process to go through.
Yeah,
And yeah, no, I have to say I'm very grateful. It was Orlando provided that
yeah,
to me when we were doing that course, and to us both. And I have to say it's been so beneficial to obviously both of us personally,
yeah.
and to those we've used it, done it with as well.
Hmm. Yeah, because we were kind of saying there as well a little bit earlier is about the structure of asking these questions, and I think it's a good thing to point out. Like you were saying that ask them like when you're not used to doing them, like probably after a while when you get used to asking these questions, or even ask yourself these questions, you can kind of ask which ones that are most suit you. But just for the time being, when you're only learning it, just ask one after the other. That makes sense.
Absolutely does, yeah. And to be honest with you, I find every question in that to be useful.
Yeah,
There are some times where you maybe don't need to because it's obvious from the answer.
yeah,
But generally speaking, I tend to go through every question, yeah. And I'm happy enough with the order they're in because
yeah.
I
Brilliant.
feel
Yeah,
that it covers everything the way I like it to be covered.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, this has been great, Fintan. Discussing the well-formed outcome today. I'm sure everybody's got a lot of great information from it.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope people have got value from it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna do our usual scale on lay and cashed on lay as well. So so I think it's my turn tonight to do the scale and lay if that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, work away.
Cool enough. Okay. So this is one that I've heard recently, and I thought I want to share with everybody. It was um it was John Grinder was this is where it originally came from. It's called B152. That's what we're calling it anyway. Okay. so so basically, there was this hive of bees. Okay, and the nest was full of bees, and there was one particular bee, B152, and every day he'd go looking for red clover. So he took a beeline one day, down and around and up and down, and then he found it. He found the red clover. So he was in a hurry back to tell everybody, all the rest of the gang in the hive. So he's made a beeline all the way back, back. And it's funny, you probably see this on Discovery Channel. He was giving it loads to the other bees, telling them all the information. And with that, all the other bees knew where to go. So all the bees made a beeline straight back to the red clover. But bee 152, he took his time. He didn't go straight away. He went down his usual route. Down, around, and back up there. But he got there much later than the rest. So let that sink in.
Thanks very much, Mark. That's brilliant.
Cheers, thank you.
And our question lay, the question of the day is, given that I suppose we're talking about goal setting here, what is the one thing, actually, just as a preface to it, I suppose, in NLP, one of the things that we do is we help people improve their lives, either by fixing something that may be wrong in their lives or helping them work towards something positive, or generally speaking, come from one to the other, or whatever it might happen to be. So I suppose our question lay, the question of the day today is, what one thing in your life would you change? Either something that's going wrong that you would like to fix, or something that's going okay that you would like to get really good at. What do you want to do? So have a think about that and see how you can improve your life.
That's great, Fintan. Thanks so much. I'm thinking about that myself now. Thanks. Great, because we all want to improve something.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Fintan. It's great to be back doing a podcast again.
Absolutely, you're very welcome, and thanks yourself, Mark, for taking part as well.
Yeah. And a big thank you to all the listeners as well, and everybody watching on YouTube as well. And again, you were going to say earlier on, Fintan, about the well-formed outcome.
Oh yeah, well, here's the thing. I hope you gained a lot from this. One of the things, obviously, as we mentioned at the start, is that when you come for a session with an NLP practitioner, you will get the well-formed outcome done, completed. And the thing is that if there's anything that you do want to change in your life, whether it's something you want to improve or something you want to that's holding you back, that you want to get rid of, you can always give us a shout on nlpupskillyourlife@hotmail.com, and we'd be very glad to talk to anybody about what direction they want to go in. And the other thing as well is, if you have any questions on anything that we've covered either today or in any other podcast, to give us a shout on nlpupskillyourlife@hotmail.com.
Great, Fintan. That's great. Brilliant.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Thank you. And then one thing probably I was going to add to that as well. Thanks, Fintan. If you are doing one on yourself, well-formed outcome, just make sure if you're writing stuff down, it's something that you really want. And like I heard it's probably been mentioned a lot, like Tony, Tony, oh gee, because his name's Tony Robbins. Jeez, how did I not forget?
All right, yeah.
He was saying some guy wanted more money, so he gave him a cent. He says, "There you go, you got more money." So it's about basically saying exactly what you want. If you want more money, it has to be a right number, isn't that right?
Absolutely, yeah. You need to be exactly sure, and that's what the well-formed outcome does. It helps you really, get a good idea of exactly what it is that you're looking for.
Yeah. So on that note, thanks very much, Evan, for tuning into NLP Upskill Your Life podcast with myself, Mark, and Fintan. So join us again. We're going to have these every 2 weeks. So join us again and take good care of yourselves.
All right. Take it easy. Good night.
Thanks a lot.
It's not always bad.